You're listening to Passing Time, a Detroit Lions podcast. We're one pride and all grit, with a passion for Detroit Lions football. Whether you're between meetings, between classes, sitting in traffic, or just relaxing at home, if you have time to pass, pass it with Passing Time. Detroit Lions Talk.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for tuning in and making Passing Time one of your weekly listens. I'm Rob.
I'm Brian.
And we are excited for you to be here. This is episode 3 of season 2 overall, episode number 40. Brian, we've been rocking this for a big old 40 ounce now.
I love it. Let's go.
Well, you're on the clock and you're passing time with us, a Detroit Lions podcast. Let's get after it. Today we're going to talk about draft talk, free talk about Super Bowl. We're going to talk about a certain guy that we've talked about in the past, staying out in Las Vegas, that potentially lists the Lions as his premier destination. And he has a no-trade clause, and he's kind of demanding out. Brian, has Bill got anything for the podcast today?
He's got something for the podcast. He always does.
Oh, it's always my favorite part. So let's get after it, because you know what? We don't want any more comments that somebody listened for 10 minutes and we didn't say anything. So bless your heart, dude. If you're tuning in again, we're getting right into it tonight. All right. So the Lions offseason, it's already hot. And as Brian and I sat here just pre-gaming today, we were just like, hey, we got a script, this long. We got this much time to talk about it today. So we're going to bounce around the script, but we feel like we have weeks, maybe a month worth of things that we want to talk about. We're going to dissect the most important, most relevant things today. But man, there's just so much to get into. And that's not even talking about like when the draft really starts picking up or free agency really starts picking up. But I think the most relevant thing right now is Maxx Crosby. Ryan, take us into that.
I feel like we haven't talked about a defensive end coming to the Lions in at least a week or two. So let's talk about the Maxx Crosby situation. He looks like he's unhappy, and that kind of stems from when they put him on IR at the very end of the season. He wanted to play through and play that last game, but they pulled him. They said, no, why don't we shut you down? Why don't you get your surgery, and we'll get you rolling come next season. Well, Maxx Crosby's a different kind of breed, man. He's a competitor. He wants to finish what he starts, regardless of their record. And now he's like, I don't want to go through another rebuild, another head coach, another switch, another rookie quarterback. I'm ready to move on.
Yeah. So Jay Glazer's kind of reporting this. This was kind of the first one to bring this to life. And Brian, I can't believe that like it's about one game at the end of last season that, that's like saying, I got this McDonald's Happy Meal and the fries were hot and the chicken nuggets were hot, but like you guys put a little bit too much ice. So I'm pissed off. I'm never going back to McDonald's. There's a bigger theme here. That's not a big enough reason to never go back, right? I think the bigger theme is they're picking number one, and they got a decent nucleus of, a really good running back, potentially, a really good tight end, potentially. And it's hard to really get a good defensive end. But after that, it's hard to start naming names of people that you're like super excited about in Las Vegas.
And, are you super excited about the coaching staff they're putting together? It's in shambles left and right. And the reality is Maxx Crosby wants to compete for championships at some point in his career, and he just doesn't see that happening anywhere in the near future with the Las Vegas Raiders.
So where did Maxx Crosby go to college? I forgot.
Was it like this little place in Ypsilanti? It's Eastern Michigan. He has a little place down in southeastern Michigan. Yeah. Yeah.
Probably can get a 20-minute bus ride to downtown Detroit from there.
I mean, if you've heard anything, if you've listened to the podcast in the past, we are Maxx Crosby fans. You know that we want this guy here. You know that every time that he breathes the word Lions or Dan Campbell or talks to a Penei Sewell or Aiden Hutchinson, we're talking about it, and we're trying to find ways to rope him in and bring. If I had his number, I'd call him right now. So yeah,
I don't think he's taking your call, bro. Last year, when we were doing the draft analysis, you had a certain like grit index thing that somebody would rate guys. Is Maxx Crosby, is that for like people coming in, or do they rate existing players, and does he have a grit index? Because we probably know what it's going to be, but
the dude is the epitome of grit, right? He is exactly what we're looking for in a Detroit Lion. You know, we talk about how Aiden Hutchinson plays way too much. Maybe he plays too many snaps and that he needs a blow every once in a while. Well, we're not going to need any other defensive ends because Maxx Crosby is going to take up all of the reps on the other side. So we're going to have 2 defensive ends playing 90+% of the snaps.
So talk about the fit with Hutch. Talk about the fit with the Lions culture. Talk about the bigger picture here.
You know that he loves the Lions. He loves what we stand for. He loves the grit index. He loves Dan Campbell. He loves the fact that we want to win it in the trenches. And it was reported that if there was one place that he would go, it would be the Detroit Lions. And that this right now currently is his favorite choice for a trade. So in saying that, well, how can we make it work? Rob, how can we make this work? How can we get aggressive? How can we call Brad and say, hey, let's get this done?
Man, I think it shrinks your window, right? We talk about this big, long, wide window, right? I think adding Max shrinks your window, but it makes, I don't know if like the width is shorter, but the ceiling is way higher, right? And it just like that next 2 or 3 years where the contracts are already input, like you got to go out there and win a championship. There is some risk associated here, Brian. You know, Maxx Crosby has had some dealings with alcohol, with drugs, and it kind of reminds me a while back. There was a really prominent prospect in Major League Baseball named Josh Hamilton. The dude was like the next big thing, and he went off the deep end, man. Like he really had battled some demons, and then he got himself right, and then he came up with the Texas Rangers. And when he was right, Brian, he was so right. I mean, I don't know the stats, but he probably hit 30 to 40 bombs. He was hitting for doubles, triples, power, played great defense, and like he was like a legit prospect. But then all of a sudden, he had to have somebody follow him around because he had a few times where he wouldn't come home, and it was kind of came up missing. Maxx Crosby has been battling those demons, and he's been really clean for the last couple of years from everything that we know. And he's been battling in Vegas, which is probably like the hardest
place to battle, right? Yeah. But
so
in saying that, you know, you come home and you have those people that you've battled them with initially that are coming out of the woodwork. And that may, you know, that may come up, but he is now grown. He's mature. He has those people that he has now surrounded himself to get him right and keep him right. You know, he's no longer a rookie in this league, right? He's a seasoned vet and he knows what he's doing. So
yeah. So if the Raiders truly open this door, which there's speculation that they are, how aggressively should Brad Holmes be, Brian? Would you trade? How about let's do this? Let's play the. Would you trade this? And I'll start on the low end where like all Lions fans will be like, yeah, we'll do that trade because like the other side wouldn't, right? And I'll just kind of keep stacking it up, and I want to get you into a couple maybe potential no's, and maybe we can't even get there.
Sure, no. Well, let's first in thinking that we're going to trade this guy, we're also taking on his contract. And this contract is going through 2029. The initial, so last year's numbers were the biggest cap hits. It gets a little ugly in 2026 with like, 35.8 million. But then it kind of gets better. You're still paying nearly $30 million for your opposite defensive end. And you add that to Hutch's contract, which is pretty crazy too. So there's going to be some cap gymnastics that need to be completed before this happens. And now in saying all of this, there's going to be more that we're taking on and more that we may be giving up in order to bring him in. So
no doubt. So ideally you want to figure out how to match that cap a little bit, right? So again, I'm going to start low where Lions fans would be like, yeah, I'd do that deal, right? And it probably means the Raiders would be like, no, we're not going to do that deal, right? But we're going to get there. We're going to figure out where that pain threshold is. And right around the time we say no is probably what the most fair offer is going to be. So, Brian,
let's hear it.
Would you send Jameson Williams out there for Maxx Crosby?
Straight up, just JMO for Maxx Crosby? Yes.
Just JMO.
That easy, yes.
Okay, all right. So, JMO in this year's first for Maxx Crosby.
For me, it's still a yes. I mean, so I would consider that JMO is our wide receiver B, as Amon-Ra St. Brown is saying, but we still have some guys in the tank, and we're looking to get a D end anyway, and so that would be where I would say that maybe that first round would have gone. So to me, that's still pretty good.
Okay, all right. How about this? How about JMO Tyleek, last year's first round pick for Max?
I'm doing it. Again,
Okay.
it's still kind of that first round, or that you're still looking at that almost like J-Mo in a first rounder. This is what I'm giving up. So, yep.
Yeah. All right. So I think here's where it's going to start getting a little bit more even. Would you send J-Mo, Tyleek in this year's first round pick?
So now you're talking about basically 3 first rounders, right? I mean, J-Mo was a first rounder, Tyleek's a first rounder, and we're giving up another first rounder. So it's going to be tough. That would be tough. I would still make that trade.
You still make that trade. Okay. Would you send J-Mo and 2 first rounds for him? So the 2026 and the 2027. So now you're dealing into multiple years, right? You're stacking that forward.
I would say that, to be honest with you, that one to me is easier to swallow than to give up a Tyleek, who I feel like we've already kind of invested a year in.
Okay. All right. So I don't want to put J-Mo in everything, right? So what about, would you send Jack Campbell in a first round pick?
That's where it gets tricky, because
Yeah.
that's where I would have to start to lean towards no, considering that Alex Anzalone is a free agent right now. That means that Derek Barnes would be our best linebacker. You're looking at other guys that we may have to bring back, like Ezekiel Turner, that would fill in places. That guys like Cunningham would have to come in and fill spaces. Can we bring back a Malcolm Rodriguez to fill a role? Because he's a free agent as well. And, you would have to weigh heavily on your D-line in order to pick up the slack from your lack of linebacker play. So you're giving up the best linebacker in all of football in the 2025 season for Maxx Crosby and a first round pick. So that's I can't commit to that.
Yeah, that's a tough one. What if they're saying like, hey, we're looking at Brian Branch, J-Mo in a first round, like they're gonna want some pieces, some young established pieces, also some draft capital, right? Like, so Branch and J-Mo in this year's first.
Branch, J-Mo, and this year's first is going to be a tough pill to swallow as well. Even though, Branch is coming off that Achilles, you don't know who he's going to be. They're getting a deal with him for 1 more year, even though he may only play half of that year and not be who he was. And then he's going to be asking for a contract. So in that scenario, I would still say yes, I'm making that trade.
So, with our biased Lions, we love our guys. It's going to be a king's ransom, right? Like, I mean, it's going to cost some draft capital and probably a young core player or 2. And for the Lions, like, you take on Maxx Crosby, and there's going to be a couple guys like a Laporta that's coming up that you might not be able to extend. So if you're Brad Holmes, you're kind of looking in that bag where you have a couple guys on the cheap, maybe for 1 or 2 more years, that taking on this contract, you're not going to be able to sign, and that might be the package that has to go out, and a couple of those names are really going to hurt.
And I think it's going to hurt. I mean, J-Mo hurts. I mean, the city of Detroit loves Jameson Williams. Like, he has done a ton for this city, and seeing him leave would be devastating. But I feel like we would gain more in the things that we need than losing him. Even though, again, I love this guy. I want him to stay.
Yeah. His contract's going to run. It's going to kind of coincide with, assuming you get Maxx Crosby, which is a leap to assume that. But you got Amon-Ra under contract through 2028. That's going to impact our ability to re-sign Amon-Ra. You got Jared Goff runs out in 28 with an option at 29. Good quarterbacks don't grow on trees. He's still, like, we hope, going to be a pretty good quarterback. And I think he's, if everything goes right, earns another couple years with the Lions. And you got Sewell. He's signed through at least 2029. He's got a potential buyout clause in there, but like, that's going to impact all those big names at some point towards the end of their contracts.
Yeah, and you don't want to lose any of those 3 guys. Those are the pillars that we've built the Detroit Lions on. But we're gonna have to make in that time frame in 2028 and 2029. We're gonna have to start making some hard decisions about guys like Jared Goff and even guys like Amon-Ra. The funny thing is Penei Sewell is that we all think that this guy should be in his like mid to late 20s, and the guy's only 25 years old. I mean, the guy is still the top-notch tackle, up for Protector of the Year in tonight's awards, and he's still only 25. The guy is going to be younger than several of the draft the prospects coming in. So
we're recording this on Thursday. It's about 9 o'clock, a little after 9 o'clock on a Thursday. So Brian's referencing the NFL award show that's going
the
on,
honors,
I
yep.
think, as we speak. So let's step back from all the what do we have to give up and how do we fit the contract in. The guy said he wants to be here. And can we dream a little bit about what that Lions defense would look like with him in it, opposite of Hutch?
We can dream. The scary thing is realistically, that's basically what we'll be doing. We'll be dreaming. You know, I mean, we can talk about this all evening and be very excited about how we can make this work and what we would give up in order to get him. But, you know, Brad Holmes has not shown us that he is willing to make that home run swing and shorten the window. He has a plan in mind. He likes to draft, he likes to develop, and then he likes to re-sign his guys. He's gonna, you know, in my opinion, he's gonna stay true to that. And to his testament, that's awesome. I mean, he knows who he is, he believes in who he is, and he believes in his system. But as Lions fans, it goes back to some of the questions we've asked in previous episodes. Would you rather have sustained success or would you rather have a Super Bowl? So, you know, getting itchy. I would love both, but that's not necessarily always in the cards. I mean, Dan even said it when we lost in the NFC Championship game a couple of years ago against San Fran. He goes, it's going to be hard to get back to this. Like, this might not ever happen again, and it's going to be very, very difficult to repeat this, even though we see the roster, we see the coaching staff, we see the pieces that have been built, and we continue to add to those. But what's going to take us to the next step? And is Brad Holmes the GM that's going to do it? Is Dan Campbell the coach that's going to do it? Is Drew Petzing the OC that's going to do it? Is Kelvin Shepard the DC that's going to do it? Those are still to be determined. I believe in those guys. I believe that we are creating the right pieces, the right staff, the right offense, the right defense, and ultimately we are on the trajectory to continue to grow and get better and have sustained success while still competing for Super Bowls. I believe that. But gosh, who doesn't want to skip a step, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not so simple where it's just like you're not building a Madden roster where you're like, yeah, I'm going to ship out the garbage and I'm bringing Maxx Crosby and I'm going to have a 99 overall edge on one side and a 99 overall edge on the other side. It's not that easy. You meet the woman of your dreams and she's like, you know, hey, I want to marry you, Brian. And you bring her home and you're like, well, I just got this new puppy I'm so excited about. She's like, I'm allergic to dogs. You have to get rid of your dog. Well, that's not like perfect. And she's like, oh, like also my parents are going to move in the basement. You're like, whoa, geez. Like there's a lot of like, I don't know, like it comes with extra stuff, right? It's not as easy as saying like, well, we want that person, we'll have them here. They got their contract. We have to give something up for them, but we can dream.
We can dream. Let's just live in that world right now. It's the off season. Let's live in that dream world.
All right, let's live in that dream world. Speaking of that dream world, David Montgomery feels like he woke up and he's back in the dream world, Brian.
That's great because when he walked through Radio Row at the Super Bowl, he's talking to people, doing his interviews, and he's saying the right things, which is ultimately huge. As a Montgomery fan, I want this guy around. I think he adds to what we have here. He does not take away from Gibbs. He adds to Gibbs. And when he's on the field, he weakens the defense in order to allow explosive plays from him and Gibbs and Amon-Ra and J-Mo. It's all of the things. He is a catalyst to this team. And to hear that he is the ultimate teammate, to hear that he loves his brother Gibbs, to hear that he is selfless, those are the right things for him to say. And whether he's saying that because he's like, I got to look appealing to somebody else, or that he's saying that because he actually wants to be in Detroit, I'm going to drink the hopium and believe that he wants to be here still in Detroit.
I think, let's go on record as a podcast, as a Passing Time podcast, and saying that we're going to die on this hill, that the Lions are a better team with David Montgomery, and a better team even if his statistics don't show it inter-game and Gibbs is out rushing him, out receiving him, doing certain things. The Lions are better when he gets his 10 to 12 carries and he wears down the defense.
100%. And if we go back to the 2024 season where David Montgomery was the starting running back, he was the one that he gave the body shots early in the round in order to weaken the knees of that defense, so that in the fourth quarter we saw a tired defense that we were facing, not a fresh defense that we were facing. And that allows so many openings to this offense. And I think we lost something when John Morton started calling plays and when Dan Campbell started calling plays and we lost the details.
Yeah. All right. Fred Warner was on the St. Brown podcast. He had a few things to say, Brian.
Yeah, I threw out a little short about Fred Warner and his comments about how the Lions, they practice hard, right? And that the San Francisco 49ers do not. And how connected we can see injuries to, this it's constantly breaking down of these bodies, right? And these injuries may not be happening in practice, and some do, but ultimately we know, like, the more that you pound a body, the more that you tear down a body, the more susceptible to injuries it's going to become. And if you start tweaking an ankle or banging a knee, you might favor the other, and then that's when these types of injuries occur, often in games, because you're going full, you're going 100%. But when you're rolling at 90+% in practice, that's going to take a toll. And I think Fred Warner talked about that. He's like, listen, man, you can still get your reps, and you can still get what you need to get done, and not take guys to the ground. You don't have to go live. So
I like Warner. I think he's just like a highly intelligent guy. He's got a lot of good things going on. Probably a future coach if he wants to go down that road, right? But like, let's not pretend, one, San Francisco practices next to like a nuclear facility or whatever. They got their own conspiracy over there,
Yeah.
right? But they've got a lot of injuries as well.
100%.
Big injuries. They deal with a quarterback injury, a significant quarterback injury. I think 2 of the last 4 seasons. Ayuk was hurt. The other rookie wide receiver from 2 years ago got shot. Pearsall was hurt. Warner's been hurt.
Yeah.
Green. I mean, they dealt with their own injuries.
Line's banged up. Their defensive line's banged up. Yeah, they've dealt with it as well.
Yeah, I think sometimes you just gotta get kind of lucky, right? You stay healthy through a whole season takes a little bit of luck. That one guy rolling up on your ankle in a game, that doesn't, that keeps you out for a while. That doesn't, like, practicing hard in the spring, it doesn't matter. That was just kind of a freak accident. So anyways, Fred.
Some of those is true, but Bill and I have chatted about this as well, and he's a true believer of micro tears and micro fractures along the way that break down your body, and that leads to bigger lagging issues. And we've seen it. So the last 2 years as Lions fans, we've seen lots of injuries and lots of impact that's had on our team. And those are not the only reason, let's be honest. So I'm not using injuries as an excuse, because everybody has them. But we're a different team when we have Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph and a healthy O-line and our D-line, Hutch last year, and all these guys on the field. So
yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's a whole industry making billions of dollars out there on trying to prevent injuries and to help you live longer. Every once in a while you run into like in my business, talking to a lot of retired people. It's just people that are like, man, they're doing really well at like 95, living on their own. Cognitively, they're dialed in. It's like, what like, how'd you get this way? Is it like a bowl of oatmeal every day, or like do you walk 2 miles? What is it? Well, sometimes it's like, no, I had like 3 glasses of wine. I smoked cigarettes until I was 86, and they just got kind of lucky. Then you have the person that's like a marathon runner that only eats vegetables, and they get dementia at 72 and they die. That's unlucky, right? Because they were kind of taking that path, and injuries kind of have this different example, but a similar course on outcomes. With that being said, I think it'd be fun to kind of talk about some of the injuries that defined last season, Brian. And
yeah,
you put together a good list.
Yeah, just looking at some of the injuries that have impacted the Lions in 2025, and then kind of sifting through, like, if you could have taken away one of those injuries, and what one do you think would have had the biggest impact?
Okay, so you start reading them, and I'll tell you when I think that this is a very, very significant one.
All right, so Taylor Decker, even though he didn't miss a ton of games, he missed 2 games. He had a lagging shoulder injury all season. Liam McNeil came back, missed 5 games to start the season. He's recovering from an ACL. So he was not 100%. You saw it. He came back early, and he did not have his best season.
Lions probably played better ball when he was hurt, frankly, but yeah.
Kirby Joseph missed 12 games with a knee injury, and that can have its own. We can start our own podcast just on Kirby Joseph.
Yeah, well, hey, I think that's a big one right there. That's a big one. That hurt. Yep,
that hurt. Marcus Davenport missed 9 games, even after the Passing Time podcast said that he was going to play 17 games and be an impactful player.
Marcus, go get a bowl of oatmeal in a different city. We're done with you, kid. All right, next, move on.
Terrion Arnold in week 4 had an issue with his shoulder and then came back and then later went on IR and missed a total of 9 games throughout the season.
TA gets a lot of hate. TA gets a lot of hate, but he's a good player. The Lions are better when he's on the field.
He's better. We are definitely better when he's on the field. DJ Reed, hamstring, missed 6 games. Came back again, I think, early and still had a lagging hamstring injury.
I think that one's bigger than we talk about. I think he never was fully healthy. He was getting beat. He was trying to play catch up, getting a little bit too many calls against him. I think that one was big.
Yep. Christian Mahogany, our starting left guard, broke his leg, came back as soon as he possibly could, missed 6 games. Sam Laporta missed 8 games with a herniated disc in his back. Frank Ragnow, we can talk about Frank. He came back right after Thanksgiving, and then instantly he was back because he had a grade whatever tear in his hamstring as well.
Yeah, that was sad. I don't know how that would have ended or whatever, but like we needed some of that hopium at that moment, right? We're sitting over here injecting ourselves.
We're like, oh man, Frank is going to be the difference maker. And you heard stories about him coming back, and then he was instantly dashed.
Yes.
By that hamstring. Okay. Brian Branch, Achilles, missed the last 4 games and will be missing portions of the season coming into the 2026 season.
What's the projection there, Brian?
With him coming back, like when do you think? Yeah, from what I've saw, it's not going to be. I think he misses the first, at least third to a quarter of the season. So
kind of like Aleem last year, similar.
Yeah, around Thanksgiving ish.
Okay.
But I've heard different stories about guys recovering quicker, but we'll see. Levi Onwuzurike, a guy that we signed in the offseason to come back on a 1-year deal that didn't play a snap, didn't make training camp, tore an ACL, missed the whole season. But because of all of that, there's like a stipulation that we can bring him back, him and Josh Paschal. So,
yeah.
So, all right, from that list, who do you got? Who has the biggest impact on the 2025 Detroit Lions?
I think that Kirby Joseph injury, I would rank number 1. I would go down that list and say DJ Reed was a close second. Laporta was right there. It changed the whole complexity of the Lions offense.
And somebody that's not on this list that I could have added is Brock Wright, because after Laporta is missing his 8 games, Brock Wright went down as well. And so you're on tight end 3, if not tight end 4, in order to support that 11, 12, 13 personnel that we just didn't have. So, and we're asking Zylstra to do Laporta things, and that just doesn't make sense. So
yeah, that's hard. So Brian, I mean, those are probably 3. You could throw TA and DJ. I mean, those almost go hand in hand. That was just 2 years in a row that back end of the defense just got depleted, and we were coming in the season with like depth upon depth. Another guy you didn't throw is Rakestraw, right? I mean, you talk about a guy that like you had some decent hopes for, and he's hanging out with Levi on the whole season.
Yep. In addition to that, like I guess it wasn't one specific guy across the board, but our O-line, I mean, if you look at the most consistent guy, it was Tate Ratledge at right guard, right? That's the guy that played the most. Graham Glasgow had his times where he missed a couple games. Mahogany, like I said, he missed some games. Even Sewell was banged up and missed the end of the season, So our offensive line, even though people are saying, well, we got to do something. And I agree, we have to do something, but that O-line across the board was not ever together.
So, Brian, who's the most significant injury in your eyes?
I can't disagree with you in regards to Kirby Joseph. I think that is a huge piece, having that guy playing the defense that we play, which is a heavy man, rush the can, allowing a 1 deep safety with Brian Branch coming down in the box and supporting on the run, and allowing Kirby to play sideline to sideline. That's huge, because you replace that with a guy that might be able to play number to number, but it just doesn't have the same abilities as an all-pro leading the NFL in interceptions kind of player, right? Kirby Joseph has a big impact on how we played defense, and we did not adjust quick enough to the loss of that man. So,
and there's some big concerns there. Is that something that we want to talk about in this podcast, or do we want to kick that crushed can into the next podcast?
well, I mean, things came out, calling it the holy grail of deterioration of the knee. That this is impactful. This is not something that we're going to see a second or I guess third contract from Kirby Joseph. This might be a 2 years and we can get what we can get out of him, and that's it. That's a concern. Kirby Joseph's knee doesn't look like is getting better. It sounds like there's some therapies that he's going to try, but those therapies that he's trying, some stem cell or some what have yous, I'm so far from a doctor, it's unbelievable, but are down the line of like, this is my last like Hail Mary that I'm going to throw in order to try to make this serviceable or better. So the Kirby Joseph of 2024, I don't think we're ever going to see again.
That's pretty depressing, Brian. That's pretty depressing.
And with a contract that he just signed, there's some speculation about having the ability to get out of that a little bit. I reached out to some guys like Mike Payton, who is awesome on X and has his own little podcast, or his own podcast, the A to Z stuff. He is awesome. I love that guy. And rely on a lot of his information to bring here. But he's saying like this wasn't knowledge that the Lions had contract. But there are some avenues to make it better, such as like, the 2026 is going to be a hit, but after 2026 it makes it better. Like we can move on from Kirby Joseph if that's the decision that they make, and it's not going to have that as heavy an impact.
Yeah, all right. I mean, from also from just the pure core player standpoint, plans change, draft modes, draft boards change. You got to really try to figure that out. Free agency plans change. If a guy like that's not in the future plans, can you trade future draft capital? No, you can't get rid of that, because you have to bring new guys in to replace, and really, a Maxx Crosby becomes so much of just a luxury item because you have so many other areas that you got to fill.
Or it's a mask to hide the need for defensive back coverage, right?
Yeah.
So what a elite, having two elite pass rushers does is it allows some lesser defensive backs to cover for a shorter amount of time.
Yep, that's true. Let's transition a little bit. We put the bat signal out for Bill, right? And then Brian, you said we're going remote today. Brian he's a little nasally. That I don't know. There might be another snow day on the west side of the state again tomorrow. There's a good chance. It'd be great for Brian. But the roads are pretty slick, and we said, let's strap on the old headphones and we'll do it this way. So we said, hey, Bill, you want to jump on? Bill said, did he even respond to you? Or?
No, he has yet to respond to me since I've sent him the link. Talked to him today during school, and we're trying to like, hey, what's a great way for you to jump on, and like, nobody's seen Bill's face yet. No, all they know is that Bill is a roller coaster of emotion. They may even think that he is more negative than positive. He likes to consider himself a realist in regards, but he is a true and Honolulu Blue fan. He goes through his denouncing of Lions for a day or two, but he is right back in there loving and talking and finding ways to make this team better. And all that we're waiting for is Brad Holmes to give us a call and ask for our advice, because we have it. We have that for him. Like, we know the X's and O's that need to go into making this an elite and Super Bowl team. So Bill's ready. He's ready. He's considering the OC job, before they announced Drew Petzing, he was ready to take that on.
So Bill, you gotta get on the podcast. We got to see if you have a face for podcasting or a face for YouTube, and our tens of fans need to see that come out. So
tens of fans, baby.
That being said, what's he talking about this week when you're passing time in the hallways?
But Bill has his a couple little points that he brings out. He talks about the needs that the Lions are starting to face. We're going to get into free agency maybe next week or even the week after, and talk about what we're going to need as the 2026 season. We'll probably start signing our guys, and then after that, we'll start talking about like outside guys. Who can we bring in? So he says, our center. It's a need. It's a necessary need. We cannot rely on Graham Glasgow in 2026 to be the Detroit Lions center, and we do not want. Bill does not want Tate Rallage to shift over to center and rely on that either. We need a veteran center, but this might be a cheaper center. It's not going to be a Lindenbaum. It's not going to be the pie in the sky. And this might be because Maxx Crosby is going to be here. But regardless, he doesn't believe Maxx Crosby is going to be here. Regardless, this is a guy like Cade Mays. It's going to be a 2, if not lower type center, somebody who can hold on the fort, be effective, because he is a true believer that if you have an elite guard, that might take the precedence over an elite center. Even though when we had the luxury of having Frank Ragnow at elite center, he was able to compensate for a Graham Glasgow, which was not necessarily an elite guard next to him. But you look at Zeitler, who was an elite guard, and that combo was huge.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of his points. He also said there's no way we can bring Al-Qaheem Muhammad back. He's going to demand too high of a price for inflated sack numbers. His 11.5 sacks were not quick sacks. They were not, wins. They were coverage sacks. They were pressures from Hutch that fell in his lap. And, that guy's going to get paid, but he's going to get paid somewhere else.
Sounds like a scorned ex-lover.
He talks about wanting to bring in actually a veteran OT in free agency, an offensive tackle, because whether we bring Decker back or not, we want somebody there that can fill a role or a backup role and be greater than what we already had on the roster in 2025, because we cannot rely on a Cologne. We cannot rely on a Yoda. Dan Skipper's has retired. These are things that we're going to start looking at, that we need a veteran there. And Miles Frazier's unproven. And we also need some competition at Mahogany's spot, even though we can look at Mahogany as a guy that has some experience. But, I think we can do better. I think we can continue to grow at that. And at the very least, have some competition. And if Mahogany wins that job, great. That's good for us. But we can't just give it and hand it over to him. So those are some things that he talked about. And a couple of the last little points that Bill has given me is he is so happy that David is saying the things that he's saying. He is saying that if David, for any reason, would left, a part of his heart would go. He is a true David Montgomery believer, and he is with Passing Time Pod in saying that we are a better team with David Montgomery. And then finally, there's some talks about moving Tesla to tight end. That's dumb. And I believe I agree with Bill on this. Tesla is a 214-pound wide receiver. He's not going to gain 30 plus pounds and become a tight end. He's also only played wide receiver for 5 years now. The guy played quarterback in high school. He played D2 wide receiver for 2 years, and then played D1 wide receiver in a slot position sparingly in Arkansas for 2 years. He played 1 year and played well. I'm not going to say he played elite. I'm not going to say he was like a breakout player, but he has potential to be great and to be a solid wide receiver 3 on the Detroit Lions. But he is not going to be a tight end for the Detroit Lions.
It's kind of insane. So, there's people back in the day saying like, you should move Michael Vick to running back or wide. Everybody's got, the armchair guys sitting back looking at the, that's insane. So I want to compare maybe on a future podcast all the third round wide receivers last year. And Tesla, he grades out pretty well. He had a solid season. Could he get featured more? Yeah, but he's got 2 guys that are demanding the ball in front of him. That we can argue that JMO didn't get enough love. And then that's just kind of how the cookie crumbled this year. And you got Gibbs, who out of the backfield is lethal through the air, and then he's getting a lot of balls. And Laporta. So there's just a lot of demand for the ball for a team that wants to be pretty balanced.
There's a lot of mouths to feed there, and I still think that Tesla had a lot to learn in the first half, if not first 3 quarters of the season. And then finally, when Khalif kind of got banged up, that allowed him to show what he has learned in that portion, and to break out a little bit, to show that going into 2026, he is a viable option.
Brian, you want to do a bonus segment?
Let's do it. What do you got?
All right, this is off script a little bit. So Brian, you and I met at church. We were going through a religious education program together because we probably needed to be reformed. Anyways.
We married two beautiful women that are better than us. So
yeah, I mean, if you watched one episode, you'd know that. So at church, Brian and I, we're talking ball, but we really started talking a different kind of ball originally, and then decided to coach baseball together, Brian.
Yep.
And that's one of our loves as well. So how about just a quick little segment, because there's been a couple noteworthy things in the last couple days with our Detroit Tigers.
I love it. Let's talk about the Tigers a little bit, huh?
So let's go back a couple days ago. I don't know where you were, but I'm sitting on my couch, probably like I hold the baby, or I'm doing chores or whatever, and I get an alert on my phone, and I had to like do this with my eyes because I've been getting a lot of alerts, like a lot of like free agent signings in baseball, and none of them said Detroit Tigers, right? None of them. So this one says the Detroit Tigers signed the best starting pitcher available in the offseason in Framber Valdez to a 3-year contract. Brian, a hefty lefty, a guy that pitches to contact with the best of them in Major League Baseball, and then still has a above average strikeout record. This, took my attention from 6 to midnight. What are your initial thoughts on this?
Oh man, initially I was like, so they won the arbitration with Tariq Skubal. That was my initial thought. It's like they saved $13 million, and so they're going to spend it on a new left-handed pitcher in order to boost. They were gonna they budgeted for that anyway. And then hearing, leading on to that, hearing today they lost the arbitration, and they're still all in, actually tells me more, and it makes me more excited about the Detroit Tigers going into this season.
It's incredible. I mean, this is just like what they're doing is, they had a really good rotation, but as you know, I think the Lions, or the Tigers, they had 15 starting pitchers last year, right? What happens in Major League Baseball is you need a lot of arms because the injuries are going to happen. There's 2 weeks, there's a month-long, injury stint. It's a long season. So you take a guy like this who's actually been a pretty durable guy. I think I saw a stat since 2020. He's had the second most innings pitched in Major League Baseball. So a bulldog. And that can be used against you. In the NFL, if a running back's got too many carries, you're kind of like, whoa, it's, how much tread's left. But this guy has shown that he can be pretty durable. But you take a guy who's really an ace, right? You got an ace, but you already have your own ace in Tariq Skubal. And you put him in there, you go lefty. You put him in there at number 2. And then we already had a pretty viable number 2, right? So you got Jack Flaherty, or Casey Mize. I don't even know. Both very similar kind of number 2 pitchers. And you say now you're our 3-4, right, Brad?
Yes. And you actually, what we're adding is a guy that eats innings and goes deep into games. And I just feel like we need somebody with that mentality to rub off on some of our other pitchers as well, in order to, hey, this is how the game is pitched now. This is how I'm going to attack the game. And I want the ball in my hands. You're not going to get me out of this. So I just feel like that mentality has that grittiness that you're starting to see across Detroit sports. And I love that about it.
Yeah, it's exciting. Your number 5 starter is Reese Olson, who is probably a 2 or a 3, but he's a guy that hasn't pitched a major league season in full. He's been hurt every year, but when he's on, he's pretty good. You're bringing a guy back in Sawyer Gipson-Long, who they tried to bring back at the end of last season, coming off a big injury. Didn't have a lot of success, but they were just testing the waters there. You got Cater Montero, who's sitting in the minor leagues, coming up. He's your 4A player. He's pitching pretty good. He started a playoff game last year, Brian,
right,
and looked pretty damn good doing it.
Yep.
You got Troy Melton, who looked like the future, right? And we have not talked about Jackson Jobe, who is a potential future ace who's coming back, I don't know, halfway, 3/4 of the way through the season. What that looks like, it's hard to say, but, sounds like some pretty rich man problems over here.
And you're also looking at a pretty weak AL Central. You're looking at a Tigers team that should run away with it. And then what are we going to do in the playoffs? hopefully when we get there, right? And you're hoping that they're able to then at the trade deadline, the MLB trade deadline, evaluate, hey, I need a third baseman. I need to bring it back. I need a replacement. And that's when they make that big move offensively, because they're building their team, defense first. They have a ton of prospects. They have a ton of ability to shift and move guys. They have a lot of capital that they can offer to push their chips in. So it is an exciting time right now for the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. So it feels a little bit weak as far as if you look up and down the batting order for maybe a team that's going to try to contend with Seattle, Toronto, LA. But you start thinking about the Tigers again. This is the second time we did that. If a couple guys start outperforming, hitting, if you bring up McGonagall and he turns into the truth right away, because what they're saying is in baseball, and you remember this, but they're giving him an 80 bat, and in baseball scales at 20 to 80, and 80 that's as high as you get, right? Like, I mean, you give this podcast an 80 in baseball terms, but you got a guy that potentially they can bring up that you could plug in as a 5-6 hole hitter and punches above his weight. But also you have a farm system that's just, it's stocked.
Loaded.
As a matter of fact,
Loaded.
You are going to get Rule 5 to death pretty soon if you don't unload a few of these prospects. So you have the ability to look around and say, all right, we're deep in, we can get basically whoever we want. And then when teams become sellers, you can go in there and you're going to the garage sale, you're going to the flea market. You got Benjamins, right? And you can get a lot of cool things.
Your wallet's loaded right now and you're just ready to unload. It's the other tricky thing that you start to think about is where's baseball going to be in 2 years? Are we going to play a season, and what kind of guys are we going to continue to have through a lockout or a holdout or what have you? This is all coming into fruition too. So timing wise, this is the time to strike.
Yeah. We're having a joyful conversation. You took us the other way.
Sorry.
Let's wrap the Tigers talk up with Scooble, who,
Yeah.
Tigers arbitration, is basically like the way you negotiate, right? Like one person's out here, the other person's out here, but the way arbitrations work, it's like they're going to side more so. Yeah. So
32 million going on to Tariq Scooble, and hey, and we're still willing to pay. So
yeah, I mean, it's a steal of a deal at 32. We just, Valdez, we just gave him 38 and a half, right? So
Yep.
It's a good deal. And there's a lot of people saying that, like, why would the Tigers do that? They're trying to alienate it. It's just a game. Like the front office is talking to him. Like it's just a game. It doesn't make them less likely to re-sign him. If anything, them showing that they're going to be serious about spending money, he's more likely to come back.
Right.
But anyways, I wanted to do just kind of a fun off-season segment.
Awesome.
If you're still listening to this and you like that, like there's a few other topics. We're pretty well-rounded over here.
Yeah.
We're not just a pretty face.
We dabble in the wings. Rob's a big hockey guy as well. We love baseball and the Tigers. We can talk our fair share. And the Pistons, man, they're hot right now. So it might as well be a Detroit all kind of podcast. So
no doubt about it. Anything else on Lions, Tigers, Pistons, Bears? Oh my!
Nothing more than, hey, if you've made it this far, like and subscribe. Do us a favor, find us on all the socials, and interact with us. I mean, I try to respond to 100% of the comments that you guys give us. And I love doing it. I love just hearing what you have to say. I love being able to, if you have something negative to say, I'm going to try to be nice. If you have something positive to say, I'm going to try to be nice. And we're going to try to continue to interact and to continue to grow this thing. But we need your help. So do us a favor and pass us along to your friends, to those people who like Detroit sports, who like the Lions, and give us a like.
I love it. So to all our loyal followers, Josh, Nikki, Ty, Lone, Ken, and Sandy, everybody, we love you. Keep spreading the word. Keep spreading the love. We're passing some pretty significant thresholds on followers on different apparatuses. So we're feeling pretty good about ourselves. We're feeling ourselves. We're going to bring some heat, and we appreciate you. So hit the button, subscribe, send it to your mom, send it to your dad, send it to your dog, make him subscribe, and we'll see you back next week. Next week, quick tease, we're going to talk about the North in depth. We're going to talk about the different teams in the North, the different coaches they've lost, the different guys that potentially going to be free agent casualties, what they're looking at. So we're gonna really shine the scope in, a little bit away from the Lions, but still on the Lions, and then into some of their competition.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you for passing time with us. We are a Detroit Lions podcast. That's Brian.
That's Rob.
See you next week.
Stay gritty.
Stay gritty.